Hey everybody, how you doing today? I'm going to do a quick unmute. I see we got everybody on phones today. Hello everybody. Everybody's unmuted. Everybody say hello.
Hello.
Hey, good morning.
Hello.
Hey, now there's a crowd. Hey, so we don't have a lot of submissions today. I think primarily because most of the new clients, there's been fewer new clients in the last month than we had in January, that's for sure. And we've, I think, thrown most of them either over to Jenna/me, or they haven't actually kicked off yet. I think we just kicked one off yesterday. So I've got Jenna's rewrite of contract exteriors on the screen. Does anybody else have anything that I need to know about?
Rich, I have something that would probably be maybe worth a 5-minute discussion. If you have time.
When was the last time I had a 5-minute discussion, Dave?
well, anyway, if we have time, it's not an ID, but it has to do with the radio. Okay. So Bordner contacted me this week, and unfortunately, we were supposed to have a phone meeting about it. Unfortunately, they postponed it till next week. But they want me to do a radio script for them, which I'm going to do under the ad rating package. And this is the situation. They're actually, for some sort of radio personality out there, they're putting siding on her home. And then I guess she's going to provide some sort of testimonial-like commercial for it. And John from Bordner had specifically mentioned to me, they want to try and capture some of the good feeling she has towards Bordner as part of this. So that tells me that they want to go in a testimonial-like direction. I was just wondering, I know you're a big believer in radio and like doing radio scripts, and I was just kind of wondering what kind of questions I should use to draw out this story, and just any general direction you could give me, given that I don't have a ton of details yet, but maybe where I could go with it.
Okay, that's a good question. Yeah, you're right. I like radio a lot. And I'll tell you why I like radio, and hopefully the reason why I like radio will help on a very foundational level help to steer the way that you write the ads. It's the same reason I like television, but I even like radio a little bit more. And the reason is because when you're on the radio, you have the ability to communicate a tremendous amount of energy, emotion, cadence, tone, and feeling through the voice quality. That's really difficult to capture in writing and in print. In writing and in print, we've got what I call emphasis tools, things like, of course, underline, bold, italics, dashes, hyphens, punctuation, all these different things that help emulate spoken, pausing, pacing, emotion, and cadence. But on the radio, it's just right there. So it's a really good chance to emotionally and on an energy level connect with the listeners. So again, foundationally, I want you to be thinking about that. And if you listen to a lot of radio, and I would challenge you to listen to some radio ads and look at how a lot of them are produced in a very announcer, hey, we're a company and we want to tell you something kind of a way. And in my opinion, it's a huge missed opportunity. So the first thing that we want to look at is how do we communicate something with passion, with power, with precision, the same 3 Ps that we always talk about at MYM, passion, power, precision, and passion. But the second item that we want to capture, and this is general rules to thumb, Dave, so what I don't want you to do is take notes here and then say, okay, every time I write a radio ad, I got to make sure that this checklist is hit. You want to use
Sure.
the checklist as a guideline. Okay?
Sure.
But the main guideline is identity. Now, there's lots of reasons why you would not use identity in a radio ad. There's just certain situations. Maybe there's a sale and you've got a limited amount of time and you want to just hit the sale points, something like that. I would do that on a limited basis. With our client there in Wilmington, where you're at, do you hear the radio ads for Horizon ever?
I haven't too much. I see a lot of their advertising, but not their radio ads.
Well, in their radio ads, we've switched in the last 6 months to where about 1/5, we write about 5 or 6 radio ads for them at a time, And about 1 out of the 5 or 6 now, we've switched to really more of a positive message, really not associated with heating and air conditioning at all. We're just trying to get some general positive vibes out into the message. We wrote one about giving thanks at the holidays. We wrote one about, hanging in there and accomplishing your goals for the new year. We just wrote one about paying it forward and doing things nice for people. So those are some fairly rare exceptions where we would go really off the beaten path. But in most cases, we want to stick to identity points. And that's that hot button sheet that you fill out as a part of the process for the identity is a great resource when you go back and you look at radio ads. So let's make some notes here. Point number 1 is passion through voice. Number 2 was identity, and then number 3 is one hot button per ad. Now this also is not a hard, fast rule, but we want to focus on one thing: 1 hot button per ad. So to use Horizon Services as an example, they've got about five major hot buttons and probably another 2 or 3 not as major but still important hot buttons. One of them is on time or it's free service. One of them is trained, experienced technicians. Another one is now I can't think of them all of a sudden. You'd think I'd have them right off the top of my head. Another one is doing the job right the first time. Another one is whatever they are. Then we'll hit different ones. So one ad will hit 1 point, then the next ad will hit another point, the next ad will hit another point, and so forth. What we really don't want to do is try to cram all the selling points into one ad. Now, there's exceptions where we might do that also. We might have a main selling point that is predominant through the ad that we're shining a spotlight on. And then towards the end of the ad, we might say, yeah, we also have fast service and good prices and blah, 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 whatever the other selling points are, more in like a list kind of a way. But we generally want to do one hot button. Generally, what we also want to do is we want to have, I would say, a minimum of 3 and maybe 4 or 5 different ads running at the same time, probably 3 or 4 at least, so that people don't wear out and burn out on the ad. When they hear it again, there's going to start to be a certain amount of burnout. So we want to have a good 3 or 4 ads at a time. Okay. Now, those are all really general guidelines. So to pull it together, we look at it and say, well, what's the situation? Okay, is there an event that we're trying to promote? Is there some specific situation that we're trying to deal with? And maybe you don't know that right now for this particular client.
Well, I think that and I don't know the exact details, but I think what they're shooting for is some sort of thing that connects this radio personality. And presumably it's going to be on her radio station. In fact, I know it'll be on this radio station where she's known. And they're doing work for her or have done work that's unclear to me at the moment. But by the time the ad runs, I'm sure it'll have been done. They're putting siding on her home. And what they want to do is, I think, connect the fact that they have somebody that's known to this audience who's basically vouching for them. Is giving what would presumably be a particularly strong testimonial, since this is someone known, quote unquote, to the listeners.
And that's fine. I mean, we could talk about some pros and cons of having the radio personality and the pros and cons of not having a radio personality. They've got a radio personality. Let's go with that thought. We go back to the list that we just went through a minute ago. Number 1, passion through voice. We can hopefully accomplish that with this person. Number 2, identity. Number 3, 1 hot button. Number 4, 3 or 4 different ads. So what I would do is sit down and go, okay, Bordner, what are the hot buttons that we want to cover? We want to cover, I've actually written ads for Bordner before, so let me pull them up. I don't think we actually ended up running them. Whoops, that's the wrong thing. Okay, so we've got one ad here. These would probably not be appropriate for the situation with this lady, but just to give you an idea. this one is focused on we're not the cheapest, we're the best, okay? But instead of just saying we're the best, we go through, the idea of why you don't want the cheapest. And I can send these over to you to look at.
Okay.
What you can't see. This is one talking about the things that you can't see make a difference. Now, this brings up another point. I want you to look at these. Let's put this as point number 5. Probably needs to put higher on this list, but there's a narrative or a story. Okay, so let's look at the first one. What if you or someone you love needed brain surgery? Would you shop around trying to find the cheapest brain surgeon? Do you really want half-price brain surgery? Of course not, because there are some things in life you simply don't want the cheapest. You don't want the cheapest car. You don't want the cheapest mattress. You don't want the cheapest wedding dress. You certainly don't want the cheapest brain surgeon. So why on earth would you want the cheapest replacement windows for siding or roof for your homes? Now, here's the important element of this. Well, let's read the second one, then I'll come back and make some commentary. Second one, what if they built a new bridge on the freeway, but instead of using reinforced steel and concrete, they decided to go cheap and use styrofoam beams reinforced with baling wire and silly putty? And let's say they painted the bridge so it looked all pretty and new. Would you be excited to drive your 4,000-pound car over it? Sometimes what's on the inside and you can't see is more important than what's on the outside and easy to see. And you can see where we're going to go with that ad after you hear the introduction. On the third ad, some shortcuts are good and some shortcuts are bad. For instance, back streets that avoid traffic get you home 5 minutes earlier. Good shortcut. Or shortcut, we're calling ahead for a reservation at a restaurant so you can bypass the crowd on a busy weekend. Good shortcut. Some shortcuts, not so good. Trying to retire by giving banking information to a Nigerian diplomat who needs help moving cash out of the country. Bad shortcut. We're using duct tape to fix a gas leak behind your water heater. Really bad shortcut, okay? So here's what you're seeing in these ads. And this is the way I like to write ads. We write about things that are interesting and unique and unusual, and then we turn them to our sales message. Now, let me tell you an experience I had with this. And this experience goes back to Horizon Services, right there in your backyard. They were part of a study where a national research company came in called this is the worst name for a company ever. It's Magid. It sounds like maggot, but it's called Magid Research, MADGID or something like that. And what they do is they conduct focus groups, and they give people a little dial. I don't know if you've ever heard of this before, but they give you a dial. And on that dial, it sits at a neutral position. And then when people listen to a radio ad or watch a TV ad, they turn the dial to indicate how they're feeling about the ad. So they can turn it negative, hey, I hate this ad, this is annoying. Or they can turn it to the right, positive, I like this ad, I like what I'm hearing, oh, hey, I like it a lot, and they turn it far to the right. Do you follow me on that, how that works?
Yeah, I've seen that in political focus group things.
Right. So here's what the Magid research people say. They say, we want to see within the first 5 seconds a hard right-hand turn on that dial. We want people to whip it to the right hard and fast to show that, man, what you're saying in the first 5 seconds they really like, because that indicates they're engaged, they like it, they're going to listen to the ad, right? That's just common sense. That seems to work. Well, they rated a bunch of the Horizon Services ads, and what they saw was the ad started out neutral, and then they started going up really, really slow, barely above neutral for about 10, 15, 16, 18, 20 seconds. Then they would pop up. Now, if you look at these ads, you can understand that. It makes sense, right? So during the first 15, 20 seconds, they're listening to the narrative. They're listening to the story. They're listening to this anecdote in some cases, and they're just trying to process, well, what is this? What does this mean? And then when we say, why would you want, windows and siding that are held together by baling wire and duct tape? And they go, oh, okay. And then they hit it to the right. They said, it's way, way too long to get the engagement. And I said, I totally disagree with you. I totally disagree with you. I said, when we're getting the engagement, they're not turning the dial. They're being engaged. And it's preventing them from turning the dial because they're trying to figure out what's going on. That's good.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, you know me, Dave. You worked around here for a long time. That conversation with Magid Research did not end well with me. And we had definite words, and my client knew exactly how I felt about their stupid dial turning process.
Yeah. But, you would think you would want it. It makes sense to have. If you're telling a story, you want the peak to come at the right time, which is at the end, not at the beginning. That just seems to make sense.
So, a couple comments on that. First comment is, interestingly enough, they rated these commercials on several different metrics. One of them was the dial turn. Another one is they asked people questions about memorability, impact on their decision-making process, whether or not they're more or less likely to buy from that company, credibility and believability. And all of the ads were off the charts, literally off the charts. When they showed them in a cluster, the Horizon ads were up and over, top to the right, and they were off the charts. And they said, well, yeah, that's good, but if you don't get them engaged right away, then that's going to be a problem. And I said, okay, clearly you're an idiot, and I'm wasting my time talking to you and trying to convince you of this. As long as I can convince my client that I'm right, that's all I care about, and I think I did, because we're still running the same campaign 2.5 years later. But, so there's point number one. Point number two is, think about any kind of, not any kind of speech or movie. You ever sat through a movie? You ever gone to a movie and it's one of those movies that eases you into the story over the first 15 or 20 minutes, and during the first 15 or 20 minutes, they're setting all this background stuff, and you really don't know what's going on, and you start scratching your head and wondering, I don't even know what this is, versus a movie that has something that you can grab onto, an action scene to start, or something, a flashback, something where you're looking at, you don't necessarily know how it relates to the rest of the movie because you haven't seen the movie yet, but it's something that grabs you. And that's what we're trying to do with these stories. The worst thing you can do, the kiss of death for a radio ad, is to come into the radio ad and say, hey, Horizon Services has the fastest service. Because everybody instantly tunes out, because that's exactly what they expect a radio ad to say. It's an advertisement. You're going to tell me how great you are, and I'm going to tune out. When it comes to experienced technicians, nobody's better than Horizon. Our technicians are trained 150 hours per year, and people just absolutely tune out, right?
Yeah.
But if I say this, what if I say this? Let me give you two different approaches on that Horizon ad. Approach number one. Somebody's got some background noise going here. I'm going to mute everybody out. I still got you on the line, Dave.
Okay.
Here's two different approaches. When it comes to repairing your air conditioner, experience is important. You've got to make sure that the technician knows what they're doing, has been trained, and has all the right equipment and tools to know how to get the job done right. At Horizon Services, we only hire the best technicians. Then we put them through 150 hours a year of mandatory ongoing training. When a Horizon technician shows up to your house, you can be confident that that technician is going to get the job done right the first time. It's a typical ad, right?
Yeah.
It's a big snoozer. Let me show you a different way to say the same thing. Told you I don't have a 5-minute answer. You don't want a 5-minute answer on how do I write radio ads.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's good. That'll help me as I go through this conversation with them and try and figure out the best approach.
Oh, hang on, I've almost got this here for you. Let's say you needed heart surgery, and the doctor walked in with a sharp knife, some gauze, and a copy of Heart Surgery for Dummies. Would you care? Would you be concerned? Stop right there. Think about that dial. The guy's going to hear that, and he's going to be like, huh? What? He doesn't know if he likes it. He doesn't know if he doesn't like it. He just knows that he's listening, right?
Yeah.
Would you care? Of course you would. Installing a new heater might not be life or death, but trust me, the last thing you want is a guy who just graduated from heater school who has no idea what he's doing. Okay, then we go into the discussion. How would you feel if you bought a new car that promised 30 miles a gallon, but when you got it out on the road, it only got 10? You'd be furious. Did you know that if your new heating system is installed wrong, it can lose as much as 70% of its efficiency? If you're not careful, you could pay good money for a high-quality, efficient system. I've got to find some way to bring the listener in so that I have their attention. That's all we're trying to do on all these different approaches. Let's see. Think about places where you see adults wearing booties on their feet. I can think of 3. First, in hospitals, especially in surgery where everything has to be absolutely sterile. Second, in those high-tech manufacturing clean rooms, like where they make computer chips or pharmaceuticals. The third place you'll see booties on a grown man, on the feet of every Horizon Services repair technician. Yep, all of them wear bright orange booties anytime they step foot into your home. The point, of course, is to keep your home clean. But it's more than about cleanliness. It's about respect. Same reason, now we go into some other hot buttons. Same reason we promise to be on time or your heater repair is free. It's why we never play pricing games, and why we're available for appointments after hours and weekends when it's convenient for you. And then we go into a little bit of an offer. If you need a heater repair, call us at this phone number, mention this ad, receive this discount off any service. Discussion, sales points, circle back around to close it out, within the offer. When I was a Boy Scout when I was a kid. We go camping a lot. And when we'd pack up to leave, our Scoutmaster would always remind us, leave it cleaner than you found it. We'd hunt for bottle caps and pull tabs and bread ties, stuff we hadn't put there, but stuff that we were willing to find and haul out so that we could fulfill our duty to leave it cleaner than we found it. And you know what? That philosophy stuck with me. At Horizon Services, when we come to your house for a heater repair or a plumbing job, I can absolutely – you see how this dial hits hard to the right at this point?
Yeah.
Whereas if we just went in and wrote a traditional ad, it's important that we respect our customers. At Horizon Services, we always wear booties on our feet. We always put a drop cloth down, and we always do things right. And those things are nominally interesting and appealing to people, but they're so expected, they're so typical that they lose their power. But when we set them up, so, you want to be the master of the setup. And, that's hard. And not every single ad has, a setup. If you've got 3 or 4 ads, you want maybe 1 or 2, maybe a little bit more straightforward. Let me read you a couple straightforward ads that I've written for Horizon so you can see that not every single ad is, all that. Well, did you know that one of the worst things you could do is turn on your air conditioner after it's been sitting there all winter gathering dust without giving it a thought, without giving a thorough tune-up first? Think about it. What if your car had been sitting in the garage for the last 6 months without ever running? Any piece of machinery that's been sitting needs to be tuned up. So we can get right into the point on that one pretty quick. Some people think that since Horizon Services is the area's biggest installer of air conditioners, we must be one of those huge soulless corporations. Nothing could be further from the truth. We are big, but we've never lost our personal local touch. We have over 300 employees, but your phone call will always be answered by a real human being, not a voicemail. Our fleet of 200 orange trucks is big, but it allows us to install new air conditioners tomorrow, not next week, like smaller companies. We have over 8,300 customers a month, but we'll always take care to wear bright orange booties to protect your home. Okay? Just giving you some ideas.
Yeah.
And I'd be happy to send you, anything you want so you can look at this stuff. Here's one that we just wrote. I kind of like this one. Now, the sales point on this one is showing up. It's their on-time or free guarantee. And I've written probably 20 ads for them on time or it's free guarantee. And, after a while, you start going, okay, how do I write another ad about this? Well, you just keep thinking of scenarios. So here's what I came up with for this month. When I was growing up, if a kid ever tried to claim he was better or smarter or faster than someone else, the other kids would always make him prove it. Okay, stop right there. Now, in the context of this campaign that's been going on for 2.5 years, a lot of the listeners are going to hear that, and they're going to say, hey, that's that guy from Horizon, or at least, hey, that's that guy from that air conditioning company. Maybe they don't even recognize it's Horizon after a year or two. But they're going to recognize a lot of people, not all of them certainly, but a fair amount after 2.5 years of being on the same station are going to go, oh, hey, it's that guy again, right?
Yeah.
But see, I've already captured him, because now, even though it's that guy again, now, what's he talking about? It's something new. I don't know what it is. When I was growing up, if a kid ever tried to claim he was better or smarter or faster than someone else, the other kids would make him prove it. They'd say, put your money where your mouth is. And you know what? I still like that philosophy. At Horizon Services, we make some pretty bold claims. We say that when we schedule an appointment to fix your air conditioner, we'll be there on time. The talk is cheap, and anyone can say they'll be there on time. That's why we put our money where our mouth is. If we're not there on time, if we're even just 1 minute late, then your entire service is free. No fine print, no hoops to jump through, just free. That's because at Horizon Services, we're absolutely willing to put our money where our mouth is. Call us right now, blah, 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 offer, phone number, web address. So this is the style I like. It's not the only style. Depending on the client, I might get a little more plucky. This client is a big, almost institutional type client, so we want to be personal, but we still want to be professional. I've got ads for some smaller roofing companies. I mean, I wrote a whole series for Nordine Remodeling that was very plucky. In other words, we pushed some boundaries of comfort on the radio that caused some complaints, but people were listening. I wrote one talking about how any idiot fool can hammer a shingle into a roof. And I kept coming back and calling them fools and idiots about 6 times on the ad. And it was pretty in your face. And it's not appropriate for this client, Horizon, certainly not appropriate for Bordner. But notice, even though this is a $90 million air conditioning company that needs to maintain professional shine to them, it's still a personal, it's still a conversational kind of a tone. So I don't know if any of that helps or not.
No, it does. It does. It gives me a lot of context, and then I'll see how I can best shape it to this particular situation, and I'll know more once this is really based on some snippets of information he's given me in email, and when I have a chance to have a full conversation with him, I'll be able to hopefully apply some of these principles to trying to get him something real good.
Well,
one other quick question.
Before you give me that question, I just want to put this out there to you and to everybody else, the other copywriters. In this type of a situation, don't hesitate at all to send me an email that says, hey, here's the project. I'm working on these ads. Here's what I'm thinking. Thinking about one where, I compare, making claims about fast service to putting your money where your mouth is, and it would kind of go like this. And I'm going to compare this one to this, and I'm kind of thinking about doing this with this. What do you think? Before you maybe put all the effort into it to write the whole thing out, I'd be happy to steer you before you get all the way to the end, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, okay.
And that goes for anything, not just radio ads. I mean, you got any type of project, even on identities. Come to me and midstream and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Here's my high-level concept. What do you think? And then maybe we say, well, that looks great, but what about this, or whatever. Okay, so go ahead. Next question.
The only this is more of just a logistics thing. I see that at least what you have on the left on the screen here, like a lot of these are just over 200 words. Is that equal about 30 seconds? Is that how that works, or is that?
No, these are 60-second spots.
Okay.
But we've tailed that down a lot. Typically, we're going to try to be in about 170 for 1 minute.
Okay.
with Horizon services, you know, my problem is I can read cleanly and clearly and articulately. I can read radio ads at about 190 to 200 words per minute with no problem, and people don't go, yeah, I can keep up with that. A lot of other guys a lot slower. With Mark Aiken at Horizon, we found that 165 to 170 is about right. Now, word counts are tricky though, because different commercials have different word counts. You know, we might find that one that is we had an experience a few months ago where we had one that was like 182 and it was 7 seconds short. So we had to go back and fill stuff in, and it came out over 200, even though its cadence and whatnot was similar to other ads.
Okay.
Ostensibly, just happened to have a lot of short words in it, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah, I would use 170 as a guidepost, and I would use about, you know, 30-second commercials are really, really hard. I hate 30-second commercials because,
to tell you the truth, I don't even know what they're gonna what time frame they're gonna give me yet. I just was curious because, you know, obviously that's a little bit of a wrinkle. You know, when I'm writing for the web, you want to be mindful of word count, but you don't have to worry about it too much. But I was thinking, if you know, for specific time things, obviously that becomes a big factor.
Yep, I would say for 60 seconds, gun for about 170.
Okay.
If you go over 180, you're probably too much. Okay. For 30s, I would gun for about 88 to 90, somewhere in that range. So, and that's a little bit quicker pace, but again, it's harder to get rid of words when you're trying to get it down to 30. So I would opt for, hey, just read it a little bit faster. We're throwing our children overboard here. We need to keep some in.
Okay. Well, if it's the radio personality, presumably she'll be decent at reading, hopefully. So.
Well, yeah, but it's not a matter of they're good or bad at reading. It's how fast do they read.
Okay.
So, anyway.
All right.
If you gave somebody a script with 170 and they came back and said, hey, this is a minute 10, I'd go back to them and say read it faster.
Okay. Okay.
If I wrote something that was 190 and they came back and said, hey, it's too long, I'd say, okay, let me edit some out.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So there's some good rules of thumb for you there. Word count's really, really critical. But I also encourage this when you write a radio ad. Write it out the way you want it. I always write mine without editing them, and then I do a word count. And I very frequently come in at 220, 240, 260. And then I'll go back and I'll say, okay, now let me start editing and chop it down to 210. And, wow, there's nothing I can pull out of here. And then, you know, you rephrase something, and now you're at 198. And, you know, it's just a process.
Sure. Okay.
Don't count your words on the front end is what I'm saying. Write what you want to say and then go start editing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it. That's it. I appreciate it.
Okay, I'm going to make a couple notes here. Okay. All right. Does anybody else have any random questions or comments? Everybody's unmuted right now. Sounds like the wild hogs running through somebody's house has gone away. Okay, let's do this. We don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but Jen, I've got you unmuted.
Okay.
And let's go ahead and look at this. This is one that we've been working on together. Look at that. I can't even spell soon. That's my mistake, not yours. Okay. I'm just going to read through this. I'm going to go through the headlines, which, of course, we've looked at already, but just as a preface of getting into the text. Successful remodeling isn't haphazard. It doesn't happen by accident. It's 100% calculated, premeditated, deliberate, and absolutely on purpose. We've implemented standards, systems that cause all the pricing ambiguity, communication gaps, finger pointing, unexplained delays, cost overruns, hollow warranties, and unpleasant surprises to just go away. Superior caliber materials, hyper-strict installation standards, always informed communication, warranties with teeth, premeditated excellence. let's face it, contractors don't have the best reputation. I should know. I used to deal with them all the time after spending 10 years working for some of the largest home builders in the country, and after continually pulling my hair out 365 days a year dealing with contractors for various trades, I finally had it up to here. The unkept promises, the missed deadlines, the phantom warranties, the shoddy construction, the incessant blaming and finger pointing, and all I could do to keep myself from going postal. Wow, this part I really, really like so far. That's a joke. So in 2009, I quit my job and started my own contracting company, a real business, not a seat of the pants, operating out of the back of a pickup truck contracting company. The company is built on 3 foundational promises that make all the difference in the world. Promise 1, only premium quality products. You don't want to use crap. They probably won't like that. You're right.
I just wasn't sure how to say that, excuse me, strongly without, you know what I mean? Anyway, maybe you have an idea for a better word there, but.
Okay, only premium quality products. You don't want to use crap products that will fail down the road. Luckily, let's leave that word in there and let's just add a couple words in here. You don't want to use crap products that save a few pennies now, but will fail down the road. That captures the problem a little bit with a little bit more detail. Luckily for you, we don't want that either, so you never have to second guess if our quality standards are on par with expectations. They are. I feel like this phrase here really is just a restatement of what we've already said. You don't want to use crap products that have. Let's change this from us to just you don't want to use cheap, flimsy, inferior, crummy products. They'll save you a few pennies now, but will fail down the road. Lucky for you, we don't want that either. So you never have to second guess if our quality standards are on par with your expectations. They are. You don't want to use cheap, flimsy, inferior, crummy products that save a few pennies now, but will fail down the road. Okay. I feel like we're missing a piece of this story here before we get to this. Let's read the story. In 2009, I quit my job and started my own contracting company, a real business, not a seat of the pants, operating out of the back of a pickup truck contracting company. Can you identify what part of the story might be missing here?
Well, either talking about the job he had before, maybe, so that there's a little background, or if you scroll down, I think there's a little more information, or at least there was. Maybe I cut that because we did these promises. Let me open up the previous document.
Well, here's what I want you to do. I want you to not really look at the document. I just want you to think through this story that we're trying to tell. So let's review the story. I used to deal with crummy contractors. I worked in a job where they drove me crazy. Here's what they did that drove me crazy, okay? I used to have a job where I worked with contractors and they drove me crazy. That's what that says right there, right?
Right.
Okay? Here's the specific stuff they did that made me crazy, and here's how I felt about it. I wanted to go postal. So in 2009, I quit my job and I started my own company. There's a critical piece of this story that is going to make it click in people's minds that's missing. Just the flow of the story.
So he quit his job, started his own.
Let me give you an analogy. I took off early from work. I picked up my kid at school. He was really excited. We drove as fast as we could because we didn't want to be late. When I was punched out by the other parent, I had to go to the emergency room. well, wait a second, there's a hole in that story. We went to the baseball game. There was, unruly fans, and I got in a fight with the umpire, whatever. I had to go to the emergency room. We're leaving a piece of the story out. It's simply not there. We're getting into these premium quality products and what we do and how we do it, but we need to turn the story. I'll just tell you what it is. We need to turn the corner on this story. I quit my job. I started my own contracting company, not a seat of the pants operating out of the back of a pickup truck contracting company. I started offering these services to those same home builders that I had worked for years. They loved it. I solved all those problems, and my business grew extremely quick. Now I'm selling these services to end-user homeowners because my processes and my products are so good that not only do the home builders, have this, now I want you to have it. Here's the things that I do that make the difference.
Got it.
Product. Okay. You see how that piece of the story is missing?
Absolutely. So we want to couple all that here and not add it in down the line.
Well, I just feel like there's a part of the story missing. I mean, we got to think of this here's what we've always got to guard against. We know the whole story. We know how it ends. The person reading it has never heard this story before. So we got to make sure that it flows in a logical way. In 2009, I quit my job. I started my own company, a real business, not a seat of the pants operating out of the back of a pickup truck contracting company. We committed to fixing all the problems the home builders had, fixing all the problems builders like I had been experienced. We set out to revolutionize contracting companies. And you know what? I guess they liked it. Within 3 years, our little company had grown to over $5 million in sales. Builders raved about us. They relied on us. How do you spell relied?
IED.
Thank you. Spell check would have eventually got me that. They relied on us for all of their siding, X, Y, and Z. I don't know what they sell. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
Then we started having requests from homeowners. People just like you that weren't building new homes, but wanted to replace the siding or X or Y or Z in their existing homes. In 2011, we took our real business, not a Okay, there we go.
Okay.
So what we did is we added that. And this now makes the story complete. Okay, so now at the bottom where maybe you put some of that stuff in here, we really don't need it. Okay. Promise no one only premium quality products. You don't want to use cheap, flimsy, inferior quality products to save you pennies now. That will save you both fail down the road. You see how this highlighted sentence right now does not really advance the argument? It's really a restatement of what we said. You don't want to use cheap, flimsy, crummy materials. Luckily for you, we don't want to either, so you don't have to second guess it. That's why we only use industry leaders like James Hardy, X, Y, and Z. You'll never wonder or worry. Okay, now this is a restatement, but now it becomes an exclamation point, right? It becomes a flag on the mountain.
Got it.
Promise number 2, hyper strict installation standards. It's a reputable company and not just another guy with a hammer and a bag of nails. Okay, I think we've already established that enough. So to put that here is really taking up valuable real estate that we need to be spending on exactly what it is that we do. We have standards and a process to ensure checks and balances during installation. Bottom line, the job gets done right the first time. So let's do this. Let's pull this out, this notes real quick. I forgot what this guy does because I've talked to too many other guys. Well, that's not even the same guy. That's Easy Home Solutions. I'm in the wrong folder. Oh, no wonder. I pulled it right out of Easy Home Solutions. Contract exteriors. There he is. Okay. So we've already made the claim up here that he's got hyper strict installation standards. What we want to do here is we want to give a little bit more of a, for instance, well, what do you mean, like what? So give me some for instances or some examples or some like what?
Well,
now, before you do that, let me just point something out, and everybody else, listen up. Hang on, I see Nick's got a question. Let me see what it is. Going postal, too dark and negative. Probably, Nick. It might be. Yeah, I'm going to walk in with an Uzi. Let me see. Let me go back to my train of thought. Here's what we've done. We've told people up here that we have hyper strict installation standards. They can see up here that we're doing everything very deliberately. We've given them the story about how we started this business to overcome these problems. So when we say hyper strict installation standards, here's what needs to happen. We need to answer this question. Well, like what? We have hyper strict installation standards. Okay, like what? And that's not asked by the prospect in a negative, accusing tone. Oh, really? Like what? I don't believe you. Why don't you give me an example? It's, well, I don't really know what that means. I look at what you're saying, hyper strict installation standards, and I say, okay, that sounds good. That sounds like something people would want. But what does that really mean? Like give me an example. And then we come in and say, a reputable company, we have standards and processes that ensure checks and balances. And I haven't really told them much.
Right. So would this
the
be a
job
place
gets fun. Go ahead.
Would this be a place to talk about like those examples that he gave with like cutting the starter shingles to save like 5%, whereas he uses like the good stuff right off the bat, or where other contractors cut the siding corners by not nailing them into the stud or something like that, which decreases the wind rating, but they only use roofing nails, and they make sure every time, or?
I think those would be fantastic things to talk about on the About Us page where we go into more details about our installation, our hyper-strict installation standards.
Right.
But we don't have enough room on here to go into that much detail. So what we want to do is say, well, what kind of detail do we have room to give? So here's what I'm thinking. Here's some things that I heard him say. They average 93% on a 50-point checklist from James Hardy. That's a little bit interesting to me.
Right.
They are the only one rated by James Hardy as preferred in their market, and there's only 300 in the country. That's interesting. I get in there. Okay, here's the page of notes I'm looking for. Okay. The stuff about starter shingles, we got to look at a way to say this fairly quickly. What if we came in here and said this? I don't know if I like this or not, but I'm going to start. We're the only local company designated excuse me. Truck just pulled up. All right. GAF. Okay. We're the only local company designated as a preferred installer by James Hardy, 93% rating on 50-point checklist, the Master Elite Installer by GAF for roofing, authorized to offer unprorated 50-year warranties. Oops. The reason is simple. We never cut corners. Now, here's what I've done. I've put a little trick here. The trick is I know that people don't know what a preferred installer is, and I know they don't know what a master elite installer is. So I put something in parentheses, 93% rating on a 50-point checklist. Those things sound impressive. Independently, people wouldn't know if that's really that impressive or not. But in the context of the sentence, I'm implying strongly that that's very impressive. And I do it twice, authorized to offer unprorated 50-year warranties. And I'm presenting it in a way that implies this is not usual, this is unusual, this is a high standard. And then I come in with this sort of power statement. The reason is simple. We never cut corners. We always adhere to manufacturer standards. We insist every job be inspected by a certified supervisor before it be declared complete. Read more about our installation standards here. This, of course, would be a link to that page that we talked about. And they look at that, and even if they don't have any interest in learning more, they look at it and go, oh, crap, there's more. You know, I don't know what it is, but just knowing that it's there is impressive. Communication is king. We keep you updated throughout the project so you know what's going on. No shady or questionable progress updates, just open, honest communication. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to review my notes on that section. Here's what my notes on that section say. 40% of homeowners live out of the market. Contract day, they send an email assigning a project manager. He gets a copy of the contract. There's a login for a website with an explanation of what to expect. Project manager within 5 days that's meeting with client. Pre-construction expectations are in flux at that point. They set them in that meeting. Make sure that you are getting exactly what you thought you were getting when you bought the job. They plan the logistics, dumpsters, time frames, where the porta-johns go, etc. Every second day, photos and blurb are posted that you can send to your family and friends. Every single day, there's communication via text, phone, or email. Average length of the job is 3 to 4 weeks for siding, 3 days for roofing. Walkthrough at the end, when substantially complete, take 90% draw leave for 2 weeks, not just gone. Changed warranty to 10 years to allow for annual inspections. Okay, so there's my notes. And so I'm looking at that going, okay, what I want to communicate some of this stuff in there. We keep you updated throughout the project so you know what's going on. You know, that I think that's a lot more general than what we just went through.
Right.
What if we
There's
said
a
this?
ton of information. They have a ton of processes. It's pretty intense.
You will be assigned a project manager whose primary job is to keep you informed, is to make sure expectations are met and time frames are kept. You'll receive daily updates via email, text, or phone, your preference, and we'll post photos and updates on a private login website so you can always see exactly what's happening. If you ever have questions or concerns, you'll have a 24-hour cell number. You'll have your PM's 24-hour cell number. You will be kept in the loop. Okay?
Okay.
Now remember, here's what we're trying to answer. We're trying to answer the question here, well, like what? Premium quality products. Well, like what? You don't want to use cheap, flimsy, inferior quality products to save goodies now. That's why we only use industry leaders like James Hardy, whatever, GAF, blah, blah, blah. You'll never need to worry. Oh, okay, that's like what? Hyper strict installation standards. Well, like what? Well, we're the only company designated as blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay, like that, I guess. Communication is king. You'll be assigned a project manager whose primary job is to make sure expectations are met and timeframes are kept. You receive daily updates via email, text, or phone, your preference, and we'll post photos and updates on a private login website so you'll always see exactly what's happening. If you ever have questions or concerns, you'll have your PM's 24-hour cell number. You will be kept in the loop. Oh, wow, that sounds pretty good. But see, now I can leave this website right now as a prospective customer. Remember the definition of identity? Words, phrases, and images communicated with power, precision, power. Are you seeing the precision here?
Yes.
Passion, that communicate and articulate who we are, why we're different, why we're better, what you can expect when doing business with us. Somebody reads this and they go, okay, here's a company that makes these very bold claims about doing things on purpose. You notice how we only use the word systems and standards once here? Because the tendency, the temptation to say, oh, we got processes and procedures. We got systems that make things happen. Well, people don't want to know that. They want to know like what. So we make these bold claims. We make these powerful words. We tell a little story about how this came to be, and then we give them examples of what we do. Premium quality products. Well, like what? Well, like this. Hyper-strict installation standards. Well, like what? Well, like this. Communication is king. Well, what do you mean it's king? Well, here's what I mean. Okay. They could leave this website, and they know exactly what to expect when they do business with this company. This is a company. I mean, give this website to somebody, whether or not they're interested in the product or service or not, and say, here, I'm going to give you 60 seconds. I want you to read this website, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. They read it. Then you say, okay, what can you expect from this company? And they're going to say things like, well, geez, they do things right. Oh, wow, they use good materials. Well, they're sensitive about the way they install things. Oh, they want to make sure you keep informed. They're going to pull that out of this if you give them 60 seconds to look at it. Okay?
That sounds good. I think since we've made those adjustments to the copy above these bullet points, down below is now going to be extremely retentive.
Right.
So
we come in here now, and we cut a lot of this stuff out. It's really pretty simple. Do things the right way. Customers seem to respond well. We're definitely not for everyone. Some people are in tighter budgets, and frankly, we're about 12 to 18% higher than the cheap guys. But if our passion, drive for excellence sounds like something you'd like for your next project, give us a call. We'd love to talk to you and see how we can get your project off the ground. Let's do a word count on this. 539.
Yeah. Is there a goal for the homepage?
Yeah, there is, but I can't remember what it is. Hey, Dave, what is our goal for word count on this? I forgot. 350? Dave doesn't remember. I don't know. What I'd want to do is I'd want to see this on the page. I'd rather go a little bit long. this is a lot on the page. This is going to take a lot of work to get this to look right on the page, but I think it's strong enough that we can make it happen. What we need to do here is we need to have a box on the right-hand side that's pretty long that'll take up some space so that it doesn't just look real teeny and then a ton of text at the bottom. So anyway, I'll keep working with you on this, on the side outside of this call, but hopefully that's helpful. Oh, yeah, and you can't say anything because I muted you out. Let's try that again. Hopefully that's helpful.
I said, yep, totally.
Yeah, Joe, everyone's telling me we're shooting for 3 to 350, so we might need to go back and edit some of that out. But you know what? I'd be willing to look at it on a page and then go back and edit later if I needed to.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay. I think that's it. Anybody else have anything? Type in now or forever hold your peace. Okay. All right. That's it for now. We'll talk to you guys next time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye now.